Hi, I'm Simon Taylor, the CEO and founder of HYCU. We're here to talk today about the SaaS data apocalypse. I know that sounds like a lot of drama, potentially a tempest in a teapot, but the reality is the complete decentralization of data is creating massive amounts of challenges and problems for IT departments and organizations around the world. In fact, we would posit that the fact that data resides in so many data silos today is a key reason why we are all so open to exploitation via ransomware attacks from ransomware terrorists. To understand this sort of data silo, data SaaS apocalypse, and the proliferation of data silos, we need to go way back in time. You know, my father was the CIO of Putnam Investments over 30 years ago. And, you know, my joke with him was always, your job probably wasn't that difficult. I'm sure it was. But the reality is that, you know, if you think about the role of the CIO 30, 40 years ago, all of their data was maintained on-prem. Their biggest decisions were, are we going to move off the mainframe into client server technology? How are we going to address networking? And, you know, potentially, are we going to use Unix? Are we going to use Linux? Are we going to use Windows, et cetera? But I want you to fast forward to, 15 years ago. All of a sudden, data starts to explode. And it's not just the volume of data that's exploding, it's the sheer number of data silos where that data is sitting. And of course, that was because of the rise of public cloud. You know, starting with AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, folks finally had another option. They started to move vast amounts of data into the public cloud, and it almost looked to some like we were moving back to a centralized mainframe approach. But how wrong we were. Because in fact, when we moved and lifted and shifted that data to public cloud, we didn't stop there. We started to spread the data across PaaS and TPaaS services in all three clouds. Suddenly you had a proliferation of data silos that was completely unheard of. This story continues with the rise of Salesforce. Because as we all know, suddenly Salesforce showed up and said, well, we can take on CRM by putting it up in our own cloud, and we can sell this as a service. Today, what used to be one or two different SaaS services per company has exploded into over 212. So the rise of public cloud, the development of a hybrid cloud environment for most of the CIOs out there, and then finally the explosion of SaaS has created a massive problem in terms of data fragmentation and the explosion of data silos. And of course, as a result of having data in so many different places, we create massive numbers of security vectors that we've got to control and protect. And it's this sheer level of complexity that we argue is actually what's leading to the vast number of ransomware attacks across the world. When we look at the modern data estate today, think of it like 100-sided dice. You've got your data in 100, 200 different places, and you have to protect each one of those sides. But the reality is that becomes very, very expensive to defend. So your defensive capabilities have become far more expensive, while offensive capabilities, the tools used by ransomware attackers to exploit our modern data estates, have fallen to as little as $100 per ransomware attack. This creates one of the worst perfect storms in the history of modern IT. It's way more expensive to defend and way cheaper to attack, leaving you vulnerable and you exposed. And that is the SaaS data apocalypse.